This is Professor Sam Swaminathan here. I'm going to speak about starting a small business. Uh, the first aspect of starting a small business, perhaps you have to consider whether you would like to have a proprietorship or a partnership. Remember, if you go for a proprietorship, you're the sole owner, and as sole owner, you're free to run the business the way you like. So you enjoy more freedom. No one else is going to ask you any questions. But you're limited to your own ideas and your own capital. So if you have enough money to plow into the business, and you also think that you have a wide range of ideas, a proprietorship might work for you. Well, the other thing is, are you comfortable with all the skills required of a proprietor or of an owner of a business? Do you possess all of it yourself? Or would it make sense to partner with someone who can complement your skills so that the two of you or three of you or four of you put together would actually have almost all the skills, if not all the skills, that are required to run a business successfully? So this is a very personal choice. But if you do choose to go alone, remember one thing, it's very lonely out there. You will have few people to talk to share your problems with. So you have to have broad shoulders, and you should be able to, swim along with the tide. Things will be good and things will be not so good. And you should be comfortable in your skin, managing good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, as a proprietor, you may not have enough money, but maybe you can raise money from your family members, friends. Maybe you could write a great business plan and go to a bank. A financial institution might give you money. Be that as it may, if you do decide to go for a partnership of one or more partners, remember this: do not get into partnership with someone just because he or she thinks like you. That's the worst thing you can do. Look for a partner who thinks differently from you. For instance, if you can think through problems and solve them, look for someone who has ideas. If you are very good in finance, look for someone who is very good in marketing. If you are an introvert, look for an extrovert. If you are an extrovert, look for an introvert. People often make this grave mistake of becoming partners with people who are very similar to themselves. They feel comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that then you have the same strengths in great quantity and the same weaknesses in equally great quantity in the organization. So think contrarily, be a contrarian thinker, and embrace as partners those who think differently from you. The advantage of having partners are many. You got more minds to apply to the business. You probably are able to raise more capital. You can share the workload. When there are difficulties, you can talk to each other. So there are a whole range of things that you can do when you have partners. Obviously, you can have different kinds of partners. You can have a partner who is actively engaged in the business, who not only puts capital but is also actively engaged like yourself. On the other hand, you could have a partner who puts capital but is not actively engaged. He's a passive partner, she's a passive partner. Obviously, then the way in which you will split the profits would be that you are providing not only capital but also sweat equity. That means your effort, and therefore you should be entitled to more than your partner who has merely put in money. So think of all these things. The book describes these things quite well. So think about all these things, whether you should go for partnership or whether you should go for proprietorship, etc. There are different kinds of partnerships, and you should read that up. Limited liability partnership, particularly, professional practices have limited liability partnerships, so that if there are three or four of you, let's say lawyers, and when you are working with your partners, your liability is only to the extent of your involvement with your clients. So if a partner of yours makes a goof up with a client, you will not have to pay the price for it. That is the advantage of a limited liability partnership. Now I want to leave that topic there and share with you how I started my business, and maybe from there you can get tips on what you should be doing or what you should think of when you want to start your business. So I started my business way back in 1995, and when I decided to start a business, I also took a silent partner, that brought in more capital, and it was agreed that I would pay him 20% return on his capital, a maximum of 20%, or otherwise whatever profits we made, we would share in the proportion of the investment that we made. And that worked fine. He did not interfere in the business at all. He was a silent partner, as I mentioned. Before I started my business, I had to do a good deal of contemplation and planning. So it took me about 4 years to prepare to start my business. It's about 4 years. During those 4 years, I took stock of myself. So what skills do I have? What skills, therefore, can I offer? What skills will people be willing to buy? Which skills of mine will people be willing to buy? Because I was going to start a consulting practice. That's what I had in mind. So I had to be very clear about how good my skills were. If there were some areas that I need to tighten up or learn more, I better pick them up and learn more. So I spent 4 years reading a lot, attending some courses, and figuring out my full skill set. What kind of skill set, what arrows my quiver should have, and that was a very useful exercise. Then that also helped me with my hiring. So, I cannot be an expert on everything. So when I hired people, I hired those who had skills that I did not have. For example, I hired someone with accounting skills who was far better in accounting than I was. I hired someone who was very good in operations. That means, getting down to the nitty gritty. I am a higher level thinker. I can think at 40,000 feet. I can think about the next 10 years, 15 years. I'm not necessarily very good at thinking about next week or next day. So I needed someone who was very good at operations. So I could provide the plan, but I really could use help in execution, which is actual operation. So I was very careful, what I'm going to, that helped me hire, what kind of people I should hire. But I also knew that in order to get someone interested in, using my services, I had to get my name out there. If people did not know my name, no one would, buy my service. So the first thing I did was I got in touch with a couple of local newspapers, got to speak to the editors, and one of the editors was good enough to agree to give me a column, a weekly column. So I wrote a weekly column called Management Notebook in that newspaper. In fact, I wrote every Monday, and I wrote that for 11 years. The first 3 years, this was even before I started my business. I started writing from 1991, started my business only in 1995. So several of my columns had been published already by the time I started my business. Now, because I had started writing the columns, there used to be letters, people used to respond, readers used to respond to me, write letters to the editor addressed to me, asking me, this or that, or commenting upon what I said. So my name got out there. This also helped me with another thing, being able to present at conferences. So once the name came out a little bit from the newspaper, I would approach conferences that were planned to say, I would like to speak, etc. And I got opportunities to speak. So much so that by 1995, I was a fairly regular invitee at conferences and seminars in the region. At least 2 or 3 conferences or seminars a month I would be speaking at. And that provided me a great platform again to send my ideas out, to let my ideas be heard, and got my name out. In fact, two of my early clients were conference attendees who attended one of my seminars. It was a seminar on quality. It was a quality group seminar. I spoke on creativity and innovation. Both of them hired me. One was an $8 billion, was kind of an $8 billion group, and the other was the large group, the Inchcape group from the UK. They a subsidiary of Inchcape. They came up to me and said, "Hey, listen, we would like to talk to you," and they became clients of mine right away. So these things sort of helped me prepare myself. So on one hand, I was getting my name out. On the other hand, I was doing a self-analysis. What skills do I possess? And what is marketable out of those skills? And obviously, by writing in the newspaper and with conferences and seminars, I was raising my credibility. The next thing I did was to do an environment scan. Who will buy from me? Who will be my customer? Who is my likely customer? And who are they buying from today? That gave me an idea of who my competition would be. Because if you don't know your competition, if you don't know who you're competing with, it's very difficult to survive in the market. So the environmental scan enabled me to figure out who I'm going to buy from, who's going to buy from me, and therefore who are they buying from now, and therefore who is my competition. What geography will I serve? Will I serve 1 city, 10 cities, 1 region, 5 regions, 1 state? It'll be very clear, because geographies vary from place to place, and cultures can be very different. You better learn a lot, because if you're selling in the UK, it's very different from selling in Scandinavia, for example. So what geography will I serve? These are questions I had to first answer. These things helped me determine, but this took 4 years. And then I was ready to launch my practice. So be very clear before you start your business that you put in enough work and effort and thought, whether going partnership or proprietorship, how you will distribute your profits, etc. What skills will you have, and therefore what skills you will hire, and who will your customer be? Who does your customer buy from? Therefore, who is your competition? In fact, knowing who your competition also helps you determine how you should price your product. We'll talk about pricing your products and services another day, but this is really what starting a small business is all about. I hope you find this of some use should you want to start a business tomorrow.